Hi, Armoured Pants here, and I have another video for you, and this is a beginner's guide to tank destroyers, or how to breed pain. Now, who is this video for? Well, this is mainly for the new players who are following my line of introductory videos for the German, British, Russian lines, etc. on tiers 1 to 4. And when you reach tier 4, you're confronted with the possibility of going into tank destroyers. But of course, more experienced players may want to just get a recap as well. Now, let's talk about tank destroyers. In my opinion, just my opinion, they're the most difficult tank type to play, and we'll discuss why in a little bit. There are many different types of tank destroyers. There's some with armour, some with no armour, some with turrets, some with no turrets. Some are fast, some are slow, some have a slow rate of fire, some have a quick rate of fire. So a lot of different options. However, there are some general guidelines that can be followed and that apply to them all. So let's say this is Tank Destroyer 101. TD firstly is a support vehicle. So therefore it's the most difficult tank to which direct the game. You can't really influence it, you have to really follow what's going on with your allies. Generally you sit behind your allies and usually concealed. So therefore you need to pay close attention to your team's plan. You need to know the map, see where they're going, and then choose a spot with a good field of fire from which you can direct your gun into the enemies. Or alternatively, if you don't want to stay behind and choose a position, you can follow your heavies and support them, but use their armor's protection. Usually you have a big gun with a slow rate of fire, so therefore you need to choose your shots and targets very carefully, because if you miss, you have a long reload. And aiming is maiming, as we say in all the videos, and this is more applicable here than ever before and than with any other type of tank. Also, just remember that firing breaks your camouflage, so therefore you need to carefully choose when to fire. If you break camo and don't do any damage, then you'll just receive damage for nothing in return. And target selection, damage points versus clearing targets, you need to be very careful about how to do that. You need to consider when to do what to do, and do not go off on your own. Golden rule all the time, but even more so with a TD, because you lack armor or a turret, etc. And if you get isolated, you will die, and 0 damage is quite common even for experienced players in a TD if they get caught, particularly by flanking, lights or meds. You are a support vehicle, so support your team. You're not in a YOLO tank. To remain unspotted is perhaps the perfect TD game. My cousin used to be an officer in the artillery corps, and he used to describe themselves as the 8-mile snipers. So be an 8-mile sniper. Check the plan of your team, get into position, and keep still. Why keep still? Because when you move your tracks, it also breaks camo. But move when required. Watch the mini-map and the team scores, and if you're camping or sniping from the back, remember you need to move sometimes, so watch what's going on with the rest of the map. Now, here's some visual aids. We are not this guy. World of Tank Blitz is not a chivalrous game where you save the damsel and you let the enemy know where you are and you face off and duel. Oh no, we should be more like this guy, the silent assassin. We should remain undetected, the enemy should not know we're there, and we should deal death in silence and concealment. So let's have a look at these basic lessons in action, and we're going to do this, we're going to have a real treat. We're going to do this with some gameplay from F Mondial 57, who is a Super Unicum player in my clan 101, and perhaps the best exponent of tank destroyer play within our clan. He's brilliant on all tanks, but I think he's particularly good with tank destroyers, particularly the big ones. Now, he's in the Death Star here. Now, of course, this is a guide for beginners, so this is a tier 10. But what I thought was, if you're learning to play football, surely it's better to learn from Messi or Ronaldo. So I thought, let's have a look at where the A game is and what we should aspire to. Now, he's in the Death Star, and this maybe is the ultimate tank destroyer. I don't mean that in that it's the best one, because that's debatable, but I mean in terms of it's how to play it, in that it has slow reload, etc, etc. Now, one lesson there is he's moving into soft cover now. He's taking up a sniping position with a good field of fire. But as you see, he needs his teammates to spot up the enemy. Now, what did we just see here? Let's have a look at this again. This is something called deflection shooting. So we're going to have a look at this really in slow motion. And deflection shooting is something you need to learn when you're in a tank destroyer, because you're sitting still and you're firing at moving targets that are very far away. So deflection shooting is firing into a position where the tank will be, not where it is when you fire. You see here, look at that. You can see quite clearly there when we slow it down that he fires into a position that the red tank is not in when fired, but drives into the shell. That's called deflection shooting. It was developed by pilots in the World War I and World War II. You need to learn this when you're in tank destroyer. How to perfect it, you will get with experience, but just be aware of its basic fundamentals. Now he uses hard cover when reloading. Again, clever play because he is inactive when he's reloading. Now, as he's almost reloaded, he comes out. And this is what I mean about shot selection. You see, he doesn't fire off a shot there. Why? Because he knows he's got a 20-second reload. He's going to be inactive. So basically, he's patient, very patient. And that's another thing, let's say, call it Zen combat. That's another part of tank destroyer play. Now, look at that shot. Holy shit. Wasn't that amazing? This is aiming is maiming. Look at this. He aims very, very carefully. The tank is entirely red, but he aims for the vulnerable cupola, hits it, bang, massive alpha roll on that E75, and that is just superb tank destroyer play. Then he's back to hard cover, again using his brain. Now, again, this is something very important, and a very important lesson here for tank destroyer play, shell selection. And that's the key to effective fire. So let's have again a look at this in slow motion. This tank, the E100, very heavily armoured, is initially yellow because he has a HESH shell loaded high explosive squash head. Then he moves up, selects AP, and then fires, catches the back of the tank with the AP round. Now if he had fired the HESH or the HE, he probably would have done minimal or no damage, but because he's an experienced player, selects the AP round, bam, massive alpha roll into the E100. Now, we're talking here about map awareness. You see that he did not stay in a sniping position in the soft and hard cover. He actually moves around because he sees the red coming, and bam, gets his kill. It's a beautiful shot. Then he's back to cover to reset his camo, which just takes just under 11 seconds. And as a tip, when you're learning to reset camo, just count it out, 1,000, 2,000, etc. Now he's reset camo. Now he's looking at the map, so now he knows it's time to move to support his team. And particularly the bat chat here, which is vulnerable on low HP, he comes around the corner and he is rewarded for his proactive movement and then with another kill. That poor E75 didn't stand a chance, and that's the guy that he smashed earlier by hitting his cupola. Again, he's reloading. He's using hard cover while reloading because this TD, although it has some armour, is vulnerable. So therefore he wants to remain in cover while he's reloading, or when he's effectively inactive. Now again, shot selection, he decides not to take a shot until he's absolutely sure. And then when he takes a shot, wow does he take a shot. Watch this. This is a combination of map awareness and deflection shooting. When we slow it down, we see that he is aware of the mouse coming into picture from the left. He waits and waits. Then he fires into the space the mouse is going to occupy and does a massive alpha roll on that mouse, sets it on fire. He does 2k of damage with one shot. Just think about that, 2k of damage with one round. Incredible. And that is basically effective, if not perfective, TD play. Again, he is looking for a shot. He takes his time, aiming is maiming. He waits until he's absolutely sure his shot is going to count. And then he absolutely smashes that poor FV again. And now he's moving up to see if he can support his team again and get some additional damage before the game ends. But as his team are moving up as well, it's done, it's game over. Now that is, I don't know if that's the perfect tank destroyer game, but it's certainly close to it, and that is amazing tank destroyer play. And some fantastic lessons for us all to learn there. And if you look at that mastery game, it's almost 8k of damage, which is quite phenomenal in even Mortal Tank Blitz, even in tier 10. So many lessons to be learned there from F Mondial. And he basically does all the things that we outlined in the initial introduction to this gameplay, where we spoke about what tank destroyers are and how they should be played. Supports his team, moves when required, carefully selects his shots, makes every shot count, looks at the map, is aware of where the reds are, aware of where his teammates are, uses soft cover when firing, uses hard cover when reloading, knows the type of shell to select for the target, and has perfected deflection shooting. That is, anticipating where the enemy is going to be and firing into that space. So is that perfect tank destroyer play? Well, I'm not sure, but it's close to it if it's not. And let's move on to the next game. Again, he's in the Death Star again. And of course, this is a tank that you will aspire to as you move up. But the lessons to be learned here are valuable regardless, even if you're just going into your first TDs in Tier 4. Now he's moving to support the heavies. So he's decided, because they're all moving up towards C, he's not going to sit, camp at the back and snipe. He's actually going to try to support them. He also had a look at the red list to see how likely it is that they're going to engage the reds in the town. He's decided that that is likely, and therefore with his big gun he will stay behind the heavies but move up to support them. He's speculatively seen if there's going to be a shot on the right. There's not, so now he moves up to support his heavies. Now the heavies have spotted some targets for him, so he moves up very quickly to support them, because they're taking some damage, as you can see on the left hand side. But he decides he's going to move up and go put in a massive alpha roll into this red here. Then he uses his map awareness to know that he can hide in this hard cover. He squeezes right in. Unfortunately for him, he actually takes a round from behind, which he couldn't have anticipated, but he's protected from the actual reds, which are his main target in the town. Now the massive round that he put into that red has cleared him, and then a massive round into the Yag Panther clears that. So by going and supporting his heavies, they've now cleared two of the biggest tanks on the opposition team. He's now looking for an additional target. He has hard cover to his side and to half of his front. He pops out, and again another deflection shot here, fires straight into that. Another massive alpha roll. Let's have a look at that in slow motion. Bam, absolutely beautiful shot. And again, perfection in deflection shooting. Now he moves back into hard cover. Now we are going to see something very special here. We're going to see a beautiful ammo rack shot. Now again, target selection. Instead of rushing a shot there, he carefully selects the object as his target and fires right into where he knows he has a chance of hitting the ammo rack. The round goes straight through the frontal armour and straight into the ammo rack. If you don't know what an ammo rack shot is, an ammo rack shot is basically a shot that you fire that hits the enemy's ammo supply inside the tank, detonates it, and the tank explodes from the inside out, and you get a complete kill in one shot. That was a beautiful shot. And the ammo rack, we also, when it's completely destroyed, we call ammo wrecked. Now he's back into cover while he reloads, making sure that he's not receiving any damage while he reloads. He puts a nice round here into this IS-7, sets him on fire as well. He hit him right back in the fuel tank, and again aiming is maiming. He carefully selects a shot, pulls out, does the maximum damage that he can. Then he goes back into hard cover, so he's not vulnerable, and now he's moving at the right time to support his team. He knows that the IS-7 is preoccupied with the green in front of him, so therefore he can safely come up behind him, and with this gun that he has, there's only going to be one outcome. He hits him with a Freddie Mercury round straight up the backside, and it's game over for that IS-7. And the IS-7, again, is a particularly tough competitor, very, very strong tier 10 heavy tank. And by him moving to support his team and the greens, they actually took out the biggest threats, the biggest guns on the opposition team. So again, another fantastic display of TD play, another mastery badge from almost 7k damage this time. As you can see, if he's playing on the Death Star, it's going to be very difficult for anybody else to get a mastery badge because he's soaking them up like a sponge soaks up water. So again, Perfect display of tank destroying, but very different to the first game. In the first game, he moves up, takes up a sniping position. In the second one, he actually follows his heavies and decides to support them. And how do you decide which is best? Well, you need to look at the map, you need to look at what tanks you have on your team, you need to look at the tanks on the enemy team, and then based on that, decide where's best to go. Now, let's have a recap of the key points that we've seen here. So basically, you're a support vehicle. You're not front line, so be aware of your role within the team. You're there to support. The perfect game, I would say, is to remain undetected for the whole game, basically to be the assassin. As we said, we are not knights on horseback, we are not chivalrous. Know the map, pick your spot. If you're going to snipe from the back, pick a spot where you have a good field of fire. And remember, aiming is maiming, make your shots count. If you miss with a TD, it's far more disadvantageous than if you miss with any other type of tank. Be patient, select your targets, then that is the maximum benefit for your team. Learn deflection shooting, it's very important because you're shooting from a distance and usually at moving targets, so you need to know this in a TD more than with any other tank. Map awareness, learn when to move, be aware of your teammates and the enemy, where they are, where to move to support best and where it's safe to move to and from. And just on terms of shot selection again, it's important to know, is it better to clear a tank or is it better to do more damage? And you need to determine that based on the tank that you're firing against and where it is on the map and what tank it's up against from your allies. This tutorial is not exhaustive, but there's lots here for beginners, so watch again if you need to and take some notes. And I have videos on all the tier 4 TDs on this channel. This is to give you a general introduction to TDs. Then you can select the particular TD you want at tier 4 if you're moving into it, like the Hetzer or like the Electo, etc. Or like the SU-85B. And then you can watch those in more detail with specific information about those tanks, but these lessons still apply. So thanks for watching. Cheers much. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful. Thank you very much. Take care. Talk to you again soon. Bye.